2 stars, 1 soul. Humanity found love among the stars. The stars shone bright in the endless black of space. Among them, the twin stars of the Corellis system burned with a strange, warm light. From the orbit of one of the smaller planets, a human ship glided. Silently. Its name was Dawn Path, a vessel designed for exploration and first contact. Inside, the crew moved with purpose, their voices low and careful. Humanity had traveled far beyond its home, yet the universe still felt strange, dangerous, and immense. Elias, the cultural envoy of the ship, stood near the observation deck, staring at the 2 stars as they danced around each other. He had always loved the night sky, but seeing it in person, so far from Earth, filled him with both awe and a quiet fear. He was not a soldier or a scientist. He was a listener, a learner, someone who understood that humanity's greatest strength could also be its greatest weakness, emotion. In a galaxy that valued logic above all, this gift set them apart, and often made them vulnerable. Captain Rhea approached him quietly, her boots soft against the metallic floor. She was a figure of authority and calm, known for making precise decisions under pressure. Yet even she felt tension as the ship approached the planet below. The mission was simple in theory: establish contact, learn about the local civilization, and ensure humans were welcome. In practice, it was anything but simple. "Elias," she said, her voice low, "are you ready for first contact?" He turned to her, his eyes reflecting the golden light of the stars. "I think we are," he said, though he was not entirely certain. The aliens waiting for them were a species known for strict logic and little patience for human emotion. Many believed that humans were dangerous because they felt too much, because love, fear, hope, and anger were all tied too tightly to their choices. The planet below was green and vibrant, with clouds that glowed faintly in the light of the twin stars. It looked peaceful, but appearances could deceive. Elias could feel the weight of the unknown pressing on him. As the ship descended through the atmosphere, alarms sounded briefly, but they were quickly silenced by Rhea's calm authority. In the control room, technicians worked quickly, fingers moving over holographic displays. Systems checked out, communications linked, and finally the ship touched down on a flat plain near a city that gleamed like silver in the starlight. The alien architecture was angular and precise, with towers that reached toward the sky in perfect symmetry. There was beauty in their logic, Elias admitted, but it was not warm or inviting in the way human cities were. The aliens arrived soon after, walking across the open plain with careful steps. They were taller than humans, their skin a soft metallic blue, their eyes sharp and calculating. They did not speak at first. Instead, they observed as if measuring every human action for its potential risk or benefit. Elias stepped forward, holding a device that could translate thought patterns into understandable language. It was experimental, and he hoped it would work. The lead alien, who introduced themselves as Leora through the device, stepped closer. Elias felt something strange, a flicker of connection, as if their minds had brushed against each other. He could not explain it, and he was careful not to let the feeling show. "Greetings," Elias said, his voice steady. "We come in peace and wish to learn from your people." Leora's response was quiet but precise. "Peace is understood. Emotion is observed." Elias nodded. The words were correct, but he sensed more behind them. There was curiosity, and perhaps even a hint of caution. He felt it in the subtle shifts of Leora's energy, a sensation that made the hairs on his arms stand up. As the day passed, Elias and Leora worked together to translate more complex ideas. The humans were careful not to overwhelm the aliens with emotion, yet the aliens seemed to respond instinctively to the smallest gestures of kindness or openness. It was a dance of understanding, slow and meticulous, and Elias found himself fascinated by the way Leora's mind worked. Logical, precise, yet capable of surprises he could not predict. While they worked, Captain Rhea monitored the skies. Something in the orbital system was not right. Sensors detected fluctuations in energy that could not be explained by natural phenomena. The stars themselves seemed to pulse in response to the ship's presence. Rhea frowned, realizing that the system might be far older and more complex than anyone had anticipated. She sent a quiet message to Elias, warning him to be alert. That night, Elias could not sleep. He returned to the observation deck, staring at the twin stars. The connection he had felt with Leora earlier that day returned, stronger and impossible to ignore. He reached out in thought, tentatively, and was startled when a response came. It was Leora, her mind brushing against his own, sharing a fragment of feeling, of understanding that went beyond words. They did not speak, yet they communicated more deeply than any translator could manage. Elias pulled back quickly, alarmed by the intensity. Such connections were unknown, even dangerous. Humans had been warned against it, yet he could not deny the bond forming between them. It was a spark of something ancient, something that might have existed in the galaxy long before humanity arrived. The stars themselves seemed to recognize it. The next morning, as the team continued their work, alarms blared throughout the ship. A system failure in orbit had caused a sudden loss of power. Dawn path rocked slightly, and the humans struggled to stabilize their instruments. From the alien city below, Leora appeared, eyes wide with concern. The aliens themselves had not expected such a failure. Was it coincidence, or had the stars reacted to the humans in some way? Captain Rhea ordered all hands to secure the ship. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair the systems, but it was slow and dangerous. Meanwhile, Elias felt the bond with Leora grow stronger, reaching across the distance between them. He did not understand why or how, only that it was happening. Every time he tried to focus on the technical problems, the connection tugged at him, distracting him, reminding him that this mission was no longer just about exploration. It was about something far larger and more profound. The aliens, observing from the ground, debated among themselves. Some argued that humans were a threat, capable of unpredictable influence. Others were intrigued, sensing potential in the bond that Elias and Leora shared. The discussion became tense, and for the first time, Elias realized that the fate of his team, and perhaps of the system itself, hung not only on skill or diplomacy, but on an invisible connection between two beings. As the human crew worked, Elias felt the pull again. It was stronger this time, like a tide he could not resist. Images, emotions, thoughts flowed between him and Leora, fragmentary and confusing. Fear, curiosity, longing, caution. They were all there, mingling in a way that neither fully controlled. Elias staggered, clutching the railing for support, and a technician came running. "Sir, are you okay?" Elias nodded, forcing a smile. "Yes, just dizzy for a moment. Keep working on the main systems." The technician hesitated but returned to the controls. Elias closed his eyes, reaching out once more to Leora. She responded, gently this time, a small wave of calm washing over him. It was the first moment of clarity he had felt since the connection began. Somehow, they were learning to communicate without words, and he felt a mixture of awe and terror at the possibilities. By the end of the day, the ship stabilized and power was restored. The humans had survived their first challenge in orbit, but the bond between Elias and Leora remained unbroken and growing. They had discovered something the galaxy had not seen in centuries, a bridge between species, built not on technology or diplomacy, but on the fundamental essence of being. And yet, with this discovery came a shadow of uncertainty. What would it mean for the humans and aliens alike? And what dangers had been awakened by the twin stars themselves? Captain Rhea stood in the control room watching the stars through the viewports. She did not speak, but her mind was full of questions. The mission had already proven more complex than she had anticipated. Humans were not supposed to influence other species in such a direct and uncontrollable way. Yet Elias had done exactly that. The bond was real, and it was powerful. It could be humanity's greatest achievement, or its most dangerous mistake. Elias returned to the observation deck once more, looking at Leora's figure across the plain. He did not know what lay ahead, but he felt a strange sense of hope. Even in the vast indifferent universe, two beings from different worlds could find understanding, connection, and perhaps even love. The stars above them continued their endless dance, twin lights shining over the unknown, waiting to see what would come next. The sun of the Corella system cast twin shadows across the alien city, yet the light felt different, almost alive. Elias woke to the gentle hum of the ship's instruments, but the sensation he had felt the day before lingered. Leora's presence had become more than a memory. It was a pulse, subtle yet persistent, echoing in his thoughts. It was not just curiosity or friendship. Something deeper was forming, a connection neither fully understood nor could control. He could sense it as clearly as the physical world around him. Captain Rhea entered the observation deck, her face calm but tense. She had noticed changes in Elias. His focus wavered at times, distracted by moments that seemed unexplainable. She did not question his ability to perform his duties, but she knew that the bond forming between him and Leora was unique, unprecedented. It was the kind of phenomenon humans had been warned about in Academy simulations, yet it was happening for real, and it was real between two sentient beings from entirely different worlds. The crew prepared for another meeting with the Alien Council. Elias was to accompany Rhea and act as a translator for nuanced communication. He tried to focus on the task, but the pull of the bond was persistent. It was not an annoyance. It was a call. Thoughts and emotions brushed against his mind like wind across a plain, and he felt compelled to answer. The stars seemed to thrum in resonance, sending vibrations through both the planet and the ship, as if aware of the two minds now reaching for each other. The council chamber was massive, shaped in angles and curves that seemed impossible yet perfectly balanced. Aliens from all corners of the city filled the chamber. Their faces were impassive, their movements deliberate. Elias and Leora exchanged a brief glance, a silent acknowledgement of the unspoken bond forming between them. Neither fully understood what it meant, yet both were drawn to each other as if some invisible thread connected them. As the meeting began, Elias noticed the subtle ways the council observed him. It was not suspicion alone, but curiosity. Humans were emotional, yes, but they were also capable of adaptation and resilience. The council debated openly about the human presence. Some argued that humans were a risk, unpredictable in ways that logic could not anticipate. Others saw potential, recognizing the ability to form bonds as a strength. The discussion was tense, and Elias felt the weight of their attention pressing on him, yet he also sensed a flicker of understanding directed at him specifically. During a break, Elias was guided to a quiet terrace by one of the council members, a young scientist named KL. KL was unlike others, curious, empathetic, and willing to consider possibilities outside strict logic. He spoke quietly, his words careful but direct. "You feel it too," KL said. "The bond. I see it in your presence." Elias nodded, uncertain how to explain.
"It is different from anything I have ever known."
"I cannot control it, and yet it calls me." KL studied him, intrigued. "It may be more than connection. Perhaps it is resonance with the stars themselves. They have been watching, waiting for beings like you to arrive." Elias did not fully understand, but he could feel the truth in KL's words. The bond was growing stronger. Each time he sensed Leora, it was like standing in a current of energy, pulling him closer to something vast and unknown. The stars seemed to guide them, silently shaping the path ahead. Meanwhile, the ship faced another unexpected complication. Sensors detected a strange energy fluctuation near the outer edge of the planetary orbit. Captain Rhea ordered an investigation. The crew prepared a small shuttle to approach the anomaly. Elias insisted on accompanying them. Though he knew it was dangerous, the pull of the bond with Leora was stronger here, closer to the stars, and he felt compelled to understand its origin. As they approached the source, the stars themselves seemed to pulse brighter. The energy readings went off the charts, filling the shuttle with a hum that resonated deep in their bones. Elias felt the pull more intensely than ever, and suddenly he was aware of a presence that transcended the physical. Leora's thoughts, her emotions, merged with something greater, something ancient and vast. He did not fully comprehend it, but he felt fear, awe, and exhilaration all at once. Back on the planet, Leora felt it too. Across the distance, across barriers of biology and technology, she sensed Elias reaching toward her. It was not voluntary, yet it was irresistible. Every logical thought in her mind struggled against the flood of connection, but she could not stop it. Something within her responded to him, to the human capacity for emotion, to the bond that neither could explain but both felt. The crew of the shuttle witnessed the anomaly firsthand. Instruments went haywire. Lights flickered. The hum became a chorus of energy that pressed against the walls of the shuttle. Captain Rhea maintained control, guiding the craft with steady hands. But the sensation was undeniable. Something in the stars was reacting to Elias, reacting to the bond, and it was powerful. Suddenly the stars flared. A wave of energy washed over the shuttle. Elias was thrown against the wall, gripping the console. When he opened his eyes, the stars themselves seemed to shimmer, revealing patterns of light that no human or alien mind could fully grasp. And through it all, he felt Leora's presence as if she were standing beside him. Her thoughts reached into his mind directly, a silent greeting, a reassurance that he could not see, but could feel. The connection deepened. Images, fragments of thoughts, emotions passed between them. They shared fear, curiosity, hope, and a strange sense of destiny. Elias realized that this was more than coincidence. The bond, the stars, the strange energy, they were all connected. And humanity, through him, was now part of something far larger than any exploration mission could have prepared them for. The shuttle returned to the ship, shaken but intact. Elias struggled to explain what had happened. Words could not capture the depth of the experience. Leora, on her side, felt the same. He sent a brief message through the translator, yet it only hinted at what they had shared. No one else could understand it fully. As the day ended, the crew gathered to discuss their next steps. The Council on the planet sent a delegation, expressing both concern and curiosity. The alien world was cautious, aware that something unprecedented had begun. Humans had proven that they were capable of forging connections that transcended language, biology, and culture. It was remarkable and dangerous. Elias retreated to the observation deck again, staring at the twin stars as they rose over the horizon. He could feel Leora near, though she was miles away. The bond persisted, growing stronger, and he realized that their understanding of each other was becoming intuitive. Thoughts no longer needed words. Emotions no longer needed gestures. They were aware of each other in a way that defied explanation. Captain Rhea entered quietly, placing a hand on his shoulder. She did not speak. She did not need to. Elias understood that the bond was significant, not just for him and Leora, but for humanity. It could change everything, and yet she also knew the risk. The connection was powerful, unpredictable, and visible to the alien world. It could provoke fear, or worse, hostility. Elias closed his eyes, letting the connection flow. He did not know what would happen next, but he knew that retreat was not an option. The stars, the bond, the alien world, all of it demanded attention. He felt the pull again, stronger and more insistent than before, calling him toward Leora, toward discovery, toward a future that no human had ever imagined. That night, the city below was quiet, but the stars burned brighter than ever. Elias lay in his cabin, feeling the gentle hum of the ship, the pulse of the stars, and the presence of Leora in his mind. It was a fragile peace, delicate and uncertain, yet filled with possibility. The universe had opened a door, and humanity had stepped through it, hand in hand with a being from another world. Together, they had found something that no technology, no language, no diplomacy could create, a connection, pure and undeniable, reaching across the stars. The Corella system held its breath. The bond between Elias and Leora was only beginning, and the stars themselves seemed to watch, waiting to see what would happen next. Humanity had entered a galaxy that did not fully understand it, and yet, in the resonance of emotion and thought, a new path had begun. The connection was a spark, fragile yet unstoppable, a proof that two souls from different worlds could find each other, even among the endless void of space. Darkness surrounded Elias, but it was not empty. It felt deep, wide, and alive. When he opened his eyes, he was no longer on the dawn path. There was no floor beneath his feet, no walls, no sky, and yet he did not fall. Light surrounded him, soft and warm, flowing like water through the dark. In front of him, the twin stars burned brighter than ever. Not distant objects in space, but vast presences that seemed aware of him. Elias tried to speak, but no sound came out. Instead, his thoughts moved forward, carried by the light. He felt fear at first, then calm, then something close to wonder. He realized he was not alone. Another presence moved beside him, familiar and comforting. Leora appeared not in physical form, but as a shape of light and feeling. He recognized her instantly, not by sight, but by the sense of connection that tied them together. They did not speak with words. Thoughts and emotions passed freely between them. Confusion, relief, curiosity, and a quiet joy mixed together. Elias understood that this place was not a dream. It was real, created by the stars themselves. The twin stars were not just sources of light and heat. They were something more, something ancient, something that had once known life. Images flowed around them. Elias saw visions of a time long past, when beings made of thought and energy traveled the galaxy. These beings did not use ships or weapons. They connected worlds through shared understanding. Love, trust, and emotion were their tools. Over time they faded, leaving behind only fragments of themselves. The twin stars were those fragments, the last echoes of a civilization that believed unity was stronger than force. Leora felt the truth of it as deeply as Elias did. Her people had believed logic was the highest form of existence. Emotion was seen as weakness, something to be controlled or removed. Yet here, surrounded by the memory of an ancient species, she understood that emotion was not chaos, it was connection. And humans, with their deep feelings, carried something that the galaxy had lost. Far away in the real world, alarms echoed through the dawn path. Elias's body lay still in the medical bay, his breathing shallow, his heartbeat unstable. Captain Rhea stood nearby, her expression tight with worry. Doctors worked quickly, trying to stabilize him, but they could not explain what was happening. His brain activity was unlike anything they had seen before. It was as if part of him was somewhere else. On the planet below, the alien council reacted with fear. The sudden surge of energy from the stars had shaken their instruments and their beliefs. Some council members demanded immediate action. They argued that humans had awakened something dangerous, something that could destroy the system. Others hesitated, unsure whether fear or curiosity should guide their choice. A powerful faction within the council spoke with force. They believed survival required control, not trust. To them, Elias and Leora were proof that humans were too unpredictable to be allowed freedom. Orders were given, quietly, efficiently. Leora was to be isolated, cut off from all contact, including the human envoy. The bond they believed had to be broken. Leora felt the decision like a sharp pain. Even within the shared space of light, she sensed the change. Guards were moving toward her location. The connection with Elias flickered, weakened by distance and interference. Fear surged through her, not for herself, but for him. She reached out desperately, sending him a wave of warning, of sorrow, of resolve. Elias felt it too. The shared space trembled. The light dimmed. The stars pulsed, their glow unstable. The ancient presence reacted to the attempt to break the bond. Elias understood then that the connection was not just between him and Leora. It was tied to the balance of the system itself. Breaking it could cause damage far beyond what the council imagined. The shared vision began to collapse. Elias felt himself pulled backward, torn between two realities. Leora's presence faded, though not completely. Her emotions lingered, strong and clear. Determination, trust, hope. Then darkness closed in. Elias woke with a sharp gasp, his chest rising painfully. The lights of the medical bay blurred into view. Captain Rhea leaned over him, relief clear on her face. He tried to speak, but his throat was dry. A medic gave him water, while Rhea waited patiently. "You were gone," she said softly. not unconscious. Gone. Elias nodded slowly. I was with her. With the stars. They are not what we thought. Before he could explain further, the ship received a message from the planet. The Council announced their decision. All contact with Leora was suspended. She was placed under strict isolation for the safety of their world. The message was calm, logical, and final. Elias felt the hollow ache spread through him. The bond was still there, but muted, like a distant echo. He could sense Leora's fear and strength, her presence faint but unbroken. He knew she was still reaching for him, even if the Council tried to stop it. Captain Rhea faced a difficult choice. Obeying the Council meant retreat and safety. Defying them could mean conflict, even war. She studied Elias, seeing the change in him. His eyes held something deeper now, something older than fear. They will not understand, Elias said quietly.
Not yet, but if they break this bond, the stars will suffer.
So will they. As if to confirm his words, the ship's sensors detected instability in the twin stars. Their orbit wavered slightly, their energy output fluctuating. It was subtle but unmistakable. The system itself was reacting. On the planet, Leora sat alone in a silent chamber, surrounded by barriers designed to block thought and signal alike. Yet even there, she felt Elias, weak, distant, but real. She closed her eyes, focusing on the connection, nurturing it quietly, patiently. She knew logic alone would not save her people now. They needed to feel what she felt, to understand what the bond truly meant. Across the system, forces began to move. Ships gathered at the edge of known space, watching, waiting. Some saw danger. Others saw opportunity. The fragile peace that had welcomed humanity into the Corella system began to crack. Elias stood at the observation deck once more, staring at the twin stars as they flickered in the darkness. He felt changed, not stronger in body, but deeper in spirit. He understood now that humanity's role in the galaxy was not to conquer or dominate. It was to connect, to remind others of what they had forgotten. The stars pulsed again, brighter this time, as if responding to his thoughts. Somewhere below, Leora felt it too. Despite isolation, despite fear, the bond endured. Two beings, two worlds, and two stars were now tied together by something no order could erase. The system stood on the edge of a choice. Fear or understanding, control or trust. As the light of the twin stars spread across space, Elias knew that what came next would decide not only their fate, but the future of every species watching from the dark. The dawn path drifted in quiet orbit as tension spread through every corridor. The ship was stable, but the people inside were not. Elias no longer walked like the same person who had arrived in the Corella system. His steps were slower, his eyes distant, as if part of him was always somewhere else. Crew members noticed it, though few spoke about it. They felt it too, an unseen pressure in the air, like the calm before a storm. Elias stood alone in his quarters, staring at the wall display where the twin stars glowed softly. He could feel them now without instruments. Their rhythm echoed in his chest, matching his heartbeat. When he closed his eyes, emotions that were not his own brushed against his thoughts. Fear from the crew. Worry from Captain Rhea. And beneath it all, the steady presence of Leora, faint but alive. The isolation imposed on her had not broken the bond. It had only changed it. The connection was quieter, more fragile, but also more focused. Elias sensed her determination, her refusal to surrender to fear. She was thinking, planning, learning, and through her, he began to understand something new. His mind was opening in ways that frightened him. Captain Rhea called a private meeting. Elias entered the command room where only a few trusted officers waited. The display showed growing instability in the Corella system. The twin stars flickered more often now, their energy output rising and falling without pattern. This is no longer just a diplomatic problem, Rhea said calmly. If the stars destabilize, this entire system could collapse. Elias nodded. They are reacting to the bond. To us. to fear. Some officers exchanged uneasy looks. One of them spoke carefully. "With respect, sir, are you saying your connection is affecting stars?"
Elias met their gaze.
"I am saying the stars were never just stars. They respond to connection, and right now, they feel threatened." Silence followed. Humanity had faced strange things before, but this was different. This was not an enemy to fight or a system to repair. It was something alive in a way no one fully understood. On the planet below, Leora sat in her isolation chamber surrounded by silent walls designed to block thought waves. Logic said the barriers were perfect. Experience now told her otherwise. She breathed slowly, focusing inward, following the faint thread that connected her to Elias. It was like holding on to light through darkness. She remembered the visions they had shared, the ancient beings, the unity they had created. Her people had inherited only fragments of that history, stripped of emotion and meaning. Leora realized now that fear had shaped their civilization more than logic ever had. A soft sound broke the silence. The door to her chamber opened slightly. Kale stepped inside, his expression tense but resolved. "They are preparing for conflict," he said quietly. "A fleet is gathering beyond the system. They believe destroying one of the stars will end the instability." Leora felt shock ripple through her, followed by anger. "They would kill everything." "They believe survival requires sacrifice," Kale replied. "But I do not." Leora reached out, gripping his arm. "Then help me. I need to reach him, fully." Kale hesitated only a moment before nodding. He began disabling parts of the isolation field. Carefully, slowly. Alarms would come later. Right now, they needed time. Aboard the Dawn Path, Elias staggered as the bond suddenly flared. Leora's presence rushed into his mind, stronger than it had been since her isolation. Emotions surged between them. Urgency, fear, resolve. "They are going to attack the stars," Elias whispered. Captain Rhea reacted instantly. "Can we stop them?" Elias closed his eyes. The answer came not as words, but as feeling.
"Only if we reconnect fully."
"If I hold back, the stars will break." Rhea studied him.
"And if you do not, I may not come back the same," he said quietly. "Or at all."
The weight of command pressed heavily on her. She had sworn to protect her crew, her people, and the mission. But leadership also meant knowing when rules were no longer enough. "Do it," she said at last. "We will stand with you." As preparations began, energy readings spiked across the system. The rival fleet emerged from deep space, their ships dark and sharp against the glow of the stars. Weapons powered up. Fear spread like fire. Elias returned to the observation deck. He could see the twin stars clearly now, their light uneven, strained. He felt Leora reaching for him, her consciousness no longer blocked. Together they stood on the edge of something irreversible. When Elias opened himself fully to the bond, the universe seemed to pause. Light flooded his senses. The physical world faded. He felt his body weaken as his mind expanded outward, carried by the shared connection. Leora joined him, her presence strong and clear. They stood once more in the shared realm between the stars, but this time it was unstable. Cracks of darkness cut through the light. The ancient presence stirred, distressed. Fear echoed from the approaching fleet. Hatred. Control. The stars reacted violently, flaring brighter as if preparing to defend themselves. Elias felt pain tear through him, not physical but deeper. His human limits strained under the weight of what he was channeling. Leora felt it too. She wrapped her presence around his, steadying him, sharing the burden. Back in reality, the Dawn Path shook as energy waves rippled through space. Systems strained. Crew members held on as gravity fluctuated. Captain Rhea watched the displays, heart pounding, refusing to look away. In the shared realm, Elias understood the truth. He could not simply connect. He had to choose. To fully become part of the bridge meant letting go of what he had been. Humanity would not lose him entirely, but he would never again be just human. He felt fear, sharp and real. Then he felt something stronger. Trust. Leora trusted him. The stars trusted him. Humanity had always survived by stepping into the unknown. He made the choice. Light surged outward, stabilizing, flowing through the cracks. The stars' rhythm began to align again. The rival fleet faltered as their instruments failed, overwhelmed by emotional feedback they could not block. But the cost was clear. Elias's physical form weakened rapidly. On the dawn path, alarms blared as his life signs dropped. Leora felt it and cried out, her presence flaring bright. She understood now that she could not stand apart. Not anymore. As the stars steadied, the system did not fall into silence. Instead, it waited. Two beings stood between worlds, holding balance through connection alone. The conflict was not over, but the universe had been forced to listen. And for the first time, fear was no longer the loudest voice among the stars. The twin stars pulsed brightly over the Corella system, but the light was uneven now, vibrating with tension. Elias remained connected to Leora, their shared consciousness a bridge spanning distance, species, and understanding. Every thought, every feeling flowed freely between them. Fear, courage, hope, and despair mingled as one. They could feel the rival fleet advancing, ships cutting through space with cold intent, yet none dared fire. The stars themselves resisted, shielding the system in ways that no technology could counter. Captain Rhea stood on the command deck of the Dawn Path, gripping the railing as she watched the sensors flare. The crew worked tirelessly, trying to stabilize the ship's systems while monitoring energy spikes across the system. Every instrument told the same story. Something alive and vast was awakening. The humans had entered a force far beyond conventional power, and the stars had chosen Elias and Leora as their conduit. Elias felt it first. The bond between him and Leora reached new intensity, spreading across the Corella system. Through him, emotions traveled to every ship, every alien observer, even to the isolation chamber, where Leora had once been trapped. Those who were not ready to feel it resisted instinctively. Panic, regret, and anger washed over some, making them hesitate. Others could not block it. Curiosity, empathy, and wonder broke through the cold logic that had guided them for centuries. Leora's presence was a constant reassurance. She had grown stronger in isolation, learning patience and precision. Now, reunited with Elias fully, she radiated a calm that grounded both of them. Together they projected not only emotion but understanding, a network of thought and feeling that resonated with the system itself. Even the twin stars seemed to steady, their unstable flicker smoothing into a steady glow. The rival fleet faltered. Ships that had planned attacks froze as their instruments registered something they could not comprehend. Commanders shouted orders, but the emotional feedback from Elias and Leora disrupted communication. The bond was not merely a connection between two minds. It was a force that reminded all sentient beings of something long forgotten: the power of feeling, the strength of unity. Captain Rhea realized that this was not just about survival. Humanity's greatest weapon was its ability to care, to connect, to feel. Other species had relied on logic, strategy, and brute power, but humans had something they could not replicate. And now, in the crucible of the twin stars, that something was becoming visible to the galaxy. Back on the planet, Leora focused, extending her consciousness, letting Elias guide her through the shared space. She sensed the fears and intentions of the Council, the rival fleet, and the population watching silently. Every pulse, every thought was transmitted through their bond. Some received it as revelation, others as threat. Either way, the universe had been forced to acknowledge the presence of humanity in a way that no treaty, no technology could achieve. Elias felt strain in his body, the weight of projecting this bond pressing down on him. His heart raced, muscles tensed, breath shallow. The more he shared, the weaker his physical form became. Yet retreat was impossible. He had made the choice to connect fully, and the stars responded with light, energy, and life. In the command deck, alarms blared as power levels dropped. Crew members struggled to maintain the ship. Rhea's hands moved quickly across consoles, giving orders that combined human ingenuity with instinctual understanding of what Elias was projecting. The ship itself became a partner in the bond, amplifying the signal across the system. Humans and machines together extended the reach of the connection. Some ships of the rival fleet tried to engage. Weapons fired, but energy waves from the stars neutralized them, bending light and force around the ships. Others turned away, unwilling to continue. The tide of confrontation was shifting not through firepower, but through the quiet, persistent strength of human emotion made visible. Elias and Leora's shared presence expanded further. Through them, species who had never trusted each other began to sense a truth. Fear could be replaced by understanding, and understanding by trust. It was not instantaneous, and some resisted bitterly. Yet the universe was listening. Humanity, small and fragile, had made its mark not by domination but by offering connection where none had existed before. But the cost was severe. Elias's body weakened visibly. He could no longer maintain consciousness in the conventional sense. Captain Rhea watched in helpless awe as the instrument showed his vitals declining. If the bond continued at this intensity, he could be lost, existing only in the shared realm of the stars and Leora. Leora felt it as well. Her energy surged to support him, to anchor him. Neither could allow the bond to falter. She sent waves of reassurance, of calm, of strength. It was more than connection. It was codependence in the purest sense. Each was sustaining the other. Together they became a living bridge not only between species, but across the physical and the metaphysical. The twin stars pulsed again, bright and steady. Energy rippled across the system, illuminating planets and moons, revealing their true colors to the universe. Ships that had intended destruction now drifted in hesitation, sensing the vastness of what they had underestimated. Humans had arrived not as conquerors, but as connectors, a message without words, a force without violence, and yet unstoppable in its quiet intensity. On the dawn path, Captain Rhea spoke softly to herself, a mix of hope and fear. They are showing the galaxy who we are and what we can do. Elias felt himself weakening further. His mind stretched thin, yet he refused to pull back. Leora's presence kept him tethered, her focus precise and unwavering. Together, they radiated intent, emotion, and unity that transformed fear into awe. The rival fleet, the Council, even distant observers felt it, unable to ignore the invisible force sweeping through the stars. And then, slowly, the system responded. The twin stars' rhythm synchronized, their energy output stabilized. The fragile balance of the Corella system held. Elias and Leora, exhausted beyond measure, allowed themselves a brief rest in the shared space, their consciousnesses still intertwined. They knew the danger was not gone, but the immediate threat had passed. The bond had demonstrated something extraordinary. The galaxy had witnessed it. Humanity's power was not in weapons, not in ships, but in its capacity to feel, to reach across the void, and to unite. The stars, the system, and the people around them had been forced to reckon with it. Elias's body remained fragile. Captain Rhea ensured constant monitoring, refusing to leave his side. She understood that what had happened was unprecedented. The connection had saved the system, changed perceptions, and yet its human conduit was near collapse. But in his mind, Elias felt something unbreakable. Leora's presence, the stars, and his own determination formed a continuity that transcended physical limits. Across the system, observers reported anomalies that they could not explain. Sensors recorded patterns in the star's energy that suggested intention, intelligence, and responsiveness. Aliens who had once doubted humans now questioned everything they thought they knew. And through it all, Elias and Leora's bond remained at the center, fragile yet undeniable. The Corella system was safe, but the universe had changed. Humanity had made a mark not through aggression or domination, but through a force older and more profound: connection, emotion, and understanding. And for the first time, Elias realized the full weight of what they had done. The bond had not just saved lives. It had opened a path for the future, for peace, and for recognition of the strength that humans could offer. Leora reached toward him in the shared space, their consciousnesses locking once more. There was no fear now, only awareness, understanding, and a quiet joy. They had endured, and together they had shaped reality in a way neither species could have achieved alone. The twin stars glowed steadily. Elias and Leora remained intertwined, a proof of what two beings from different worlds could accomplish. The Corella system held its breath, watching, waiting, and learning. Humanity had not used weapons, fleets, or force. They had used something far older, far deeper. Love, trust, and unity. And through it, they had found a way to survive, to influence, and to change the universe. The Corella system settled into a quiet that was both unfamiliar and comforting. The twin stars shone steadily, their glow no longer wavering with tension. Elias remained aboard the Dawn Path, his body weak, but his mind and spirit fully entwined with Leora's. The bond that had once threatened both of them now pulsed with harmony, a rhythm that seemed to echo through the entire system. Captain Rhea moved through the ship with measured calm. The crew had adjusted to the new reality, aware that their mission had changed forever. They were no longer just explorers. They were witnesses to something extraordinary, a force that could not be measured by instruments alone. Elias's connection to Leora had altered the perception of humans across the system. Fear had been replaced with respect, curiosity with understanding. Elias lay in a recovery chamber, his eyes open but distant. He could feel Leora near, her presence, a steady warmth in his mind. Together they reviewed what had occurred during the crisis. Every feeling, every thought they had shared had shaped the system in ways that were still unfolding. Ships that had intended aggression had altered their course. Civilizations that had doubted humans now reconsidered their assumptions about emotion and power. Leora's voice came to him, not through sound, but through thought, a gentle presence that brought clarity. "The system is healing," she said. "We held it together. They are learning." Elias nodded, though she could not see it. "It is more than learning," he replied. "They are remembering something lost. Connection, trust, empathy. They see now that it is strength, not weakness." On the planet below, the council convened once more. This time there was no panic, no threats of isolation. Instead, the leaders studied the reports from the Dawn Path and observed the lingering effects of the bond. Emotions had spread through their people subtly, teaching lessons that logic alone could never convey. The council's fear had lessened. A sense of possibility had replaced it. Kale, the young scientist who had helped Leora break free of isolation, spoke openly. "What we witnessed is not just human ability," he said. "It is universal. The stars themselves guided it. We can choose to learn to connect, or we can ignore it and lose something vital. The choice is ours." Leora sent a wave of gratitude to KL and to Elias, a feeling that transcended words. Together, she and Elias were no longer merely human or alien. They were bridges, proof that the galaxy could embrace difference and still find unity. Back on the Dawn Path, Elias rose from the recovery chamber with Rhea's help. His body remained fragile, but his spirit was resolute. The connection with Leora had strengthened him in ways the physical body could not fully contain. They moved together through the ship, observing the systems and the crew, understanding that the mission had evolved into something far greater than simple exploration. The bond allowed them to sense the well-being of those around them. Crew members felt reassured, inspired, and more confident. Humans had never understood the full extent of their own power, but Elias and Leora had demonstrated it clearly. This power was not destructive. It was unifying, a reminder that life thrived through connection rather than dominance. The twin stars continued to shine over the system, steady and eternal. They had witnessed a transformation, a proof that two beings from different worlds could influence not just each other, but entire civilizations. It was a small beginning, but the implications were vast. Humanity had found its place not through conquest, but through the very qualities that had been questioned by others: empathy, understanding, and love. Elias and Leora spent long periods in the shared mental space, exploring, learning, and understanding more about each other and the stars. They discovered that the bond was more than emotional. It was cognitive, spiritual, and energetic. Together, they could perceive patterns of thought and intention across the system, subtle currents that connected living beings and even the stars themselves. Captain Rhea watched them, a quiet pride in her expression. She understood that what they had accomplished could change not only humanity's place in the galaxy, but also how the universe itself perceived life. This bond was an experiment in understanding, a testament to the potential of cooperation and trust. She knew that the responsibility of this knowledge would be carried by Elias and Leora for the rest of their lives. Communications from neighboring systems began to arrive. Messages of curiosity, requests for dialogue, and cautious approaches were sent from civilizations that had observed the recent events. The news of what humans could do spread like quiet fire. Across light years, beings who had relied on logic and fear now reconsidered. Connection, trust, and emotion became subjects of study and fascination. Elias felt a sense of calm. The danger had passed, and yet he knew the work was far from over. The stars had entrusted them with a responsibility, and they could not shirk it. Together he and Leora would continue to explore, to connect, and to teach, showing that the human qualities of empathy and love could resonate across species and worlds. As they stood side by side in the observation deck, looking at the twin stars, Elias spoke. "We have done more than survive. We have changed things, and we will continue to change them." Leora responded with a warmth that transcended words. "Together we will help the galaxy remember what it has lost. Together we will show that two souls, even from different stars, can shape the future." The crew watched quietly, inspired and awed by what had occurred. They knew they had been part of something extraordinary, a moment in history that would be remembered across systems. Humans had found their place, not through might, but through the power of connection. Love in its many forms had survived the void and reached across the stars. The twin stars glowed brighter now, steady and sure. Light poured across the system, a silent witness to the courage, sacrifice, and connection that had saved it. Elias and Leora remained intertwined, their bond a living testament to humanity's strength. Across the Corella system, across the stars and into the unknown, their story would ripple, reminding all who witnessed it that even in the vast emptiness of space, connection, understanding, and love were forces more powerful than fear. And as the Dawn Path prepared to continue its journey, Elias knew that this was only the beginning. Humanity had found love among the stars, and in doing so, had discovered its true place in the universe. The bond endured, the stars shone, and the galaxy watched, forever changed by what two souls had achieved together.